Better? Well, no, I think I feel more tired more quickly.
If you think about your lungs are like what, 4 liters or something like that, right? So that's like 2 soda cans. No, it's more than that. Like 2.5, maybe 3 soda cans of volume, and you filled it with 3 golf balls. That's how much tumor there is. I'm seeing. You know, so you can imagine it could grow a lot. You could put a lot of golf balls in there before you start having lung symptoms. You know, just to give you kind of an idea of where we are. So you know, it probably can grow a lot before we cause any problems. You know, I have no objections of just if you want to look again, I'm totally cool with that too. I'm okay with that. You know, but if you want to do nothing, just kind of monitor things, have you just kind of say hi, check in on you. You know, that's okay too.
Okay. My name is Catherine Kelly, and I've lived a long time. I'm 88 years old, and born in Brooklyn, a real New York native, if you will.
So I was wondering if you could talk about like what your summers were as a kid.
Oh, my summers were wonderful. We had, I don't know if you could really call it a house, out at Miller Place. My grandfather had bought the property at the turn of the 20th century, which was really big property for city people. So then every day we would go to the beach. That was the big thing. And then we would come home and have supper. And then we would go out for a ride. We usually went out every evening just to ride along. And one of my favorite places was around the harbor in Mount Sinai. Once a summer, we usually went out to Montauk. And that was a monumental excursion. Montauk Point is the farthest point into the ocean from this country, isn't it? And so there's a lighthouse there, and we would always build a fire, and they would make coffee in a blue enamel coffee pot, and we'd have a picnic out there. So that was always a big trip. But once a year, we usually went out to Montauk.
Were you like really attached to Long Island? Like, is that why we've kind of like stayed there sort of for summer?
I would say very much so.
Like,
especially Miller Place. We went there every summer, the day after school closed, and then came back the day before school opened. So anyway, we were out at Miller Place, and then she always got help to get the supper ready. And so she just stood up from her chair and then just fell down. That's when she broke her hip. And so we had no phone there, no electricity, no plumbing, nothing. So my mother had to go somewhere and call an ambulance. And so she was hospitalized out there in Port Jefferson. And my grandfather actually rented a room there so that he could stay there. And the rest of us went back to our respective responsibilities. And my grandmother actually died on their 50th wedding anniversary.
what happened this summer?
Well, I'm not really sure. So there were a lot of big things that were happening, and I was feeling very tired. And at one point, when I went to pick up the mail, which comes through the slot in the door and falls on the floor, I went to pick it up and I just went on over and just fell and had a very hard time getting myself up, at which point I called your mom and told her that I thought I'd have to go to the emergency room. But anyway, my life now is really quite serene. After that experience this summer, where I really felt that it was my last days, and I was prepared. Death is part of life, and that's the end. And if you've had a good life, as I've had, with no regrets really, and you're just ready for the next step. And no one has ever come back to tell us what is the next step, but those of us who have been to church and have tried to live as good people feel that there is a spirit, and that there is a spirit in the future. So I'm not sure how that plays out, but I think that there is more to it than just what we've lived here on earth. So that's my life. And so they would come over and visit us sometimes at Miller Place. And of course, we didn't have refrigeration. But Aunt Violet, she wouldn't bring a half-gallon of ice cream. She would bring one of the tubs that they dig the ice cream out of. So we would all sit around and just eat ice cream for supper, if you can imagine it. That was certainly decadent, wasn't it? But we had to eat it because it didn't keep. The refrigerator was not cold enough to keep ice cream frozen.